Hi everyone, today I'm going to discuss some techniques for predicting AUFs on Megaminx. Improving your AUF recognition can lower your times quite a bit, even though it is only a single move. For me, this helped shave about half a second off my averages in the mid to low 30-second range. With that, let's get into the video. In general, there are two parts to AUFs: determining the correct U move and executing the U move. This video will focus on determining AUFs. For tips on execution, I have a finger tricks video on my channel where I cover different ways to do U moves. One of the main ways I determine an AUF is by identifying a piece that stays in the same spot before and after the PLL. Using this, I found that most Megaminx PLLs fall into two large groups. I call the first group front face edge. In these cases, the edge on the front face stays in the same position before and after the PLL. Some easier PLLs like 7 movers, T-perms, and J-perms fall into this category. For this specific 7 mover, since this edge is orange, after I do the 7 mover, I will have orange on the front and will have to do a U move for my AUF. Unfortunately, some of the easy PLLs do not fit in this group, and one example is U-perms, which will send the front edge a U2 or a U2 prime away. For this specific U-perm, this blue edge will go to the back left, and for this angle, I will have to do a U move as my AUF. Overall, I'd say that the front face edge group covers around 1/3 of all of the Megaminx PLLs. The second group is called left corner, and in these cases, this corner stays in place before and after the PLL. I found that this group also covers around 1/3 of all PLLs, just like the first group. This corner piece is also especially helpful because most PLLs start with R moves, which gives you extra time to look at pieces on the left side of the puzzle. For some examples, these 3 PLLs will all be very different, but I will use the left corner to predict my AUF in each of them. For this first case, this has a 1x3 and a 1x2 and has headlights. I execute it from this angle, and here the left corner has blue on it. As a result, I will need to do a U2 AUF for this PLL. For this second case, we have a 1x2 and mushroom EP. Here the left corner is blue again, so I will need to do a U AUF for this case. For this last case, we have 2 1x2s and mushroom EP again. This left corner is pink, so I will need to do a U2 AUF again. The front face edge and left corner categories cover around 2/3 of all PLLs. Even though the remaining cases do not fit into these two groups as cleanly, there's still plenty of information that you can use to predict your AUF. Some PLL cases have large blocks that you can track. These can technically fit into the front face edge or left corner groups, but it's usually easier to track where the whole block moves. For this case, this whole block will actually stay in place, so I will need to do a U2 prime AUF after my PLL. Some PLL algorithms are combinations of other PLLs or even OLLs. For these, you mainly need to track the AUF during the second parts of these algorithms. Some common examples of the second parts are Soons and 7 movers, which are both front face edge. This PLL is a combination of 2 7 movers, and I will look at the edge after doing my first 7 mover. Here the edge is blue, which means I won't have to do an AUF after this second 7 mover. Some PLLs are mirrors of each other, but certain mirrored cases are executed from the back side. For these cases, you can actually track a back face edge instead of a front face edge. This is the right-sided version, and since it's front face edge, I will do a U prime after this PLL. This AUF is the mirror of the previous one, and the corresponding edge is over here in the back. Here, since this is orange, I would have to do a U AUF after this PLL. For these last two cases, I found that these PLLs don't have any preserved pieces before and after the PLL. For these cases, you have two sets of headlights where one set of headlights is adjacent, but the other one is not. This is the mirror where the set of adjacent headlights is in the back, and this one's in the front. For this case, I know that these two stickers, which are both orange, will end up in the front, so I will have to do a U2 prime AUF for this PLL. For this case, these two stickers, which are both pink, will end up in the back right, and I will have to do a U2 AUF for this PLL. These two PLLs actually used the previous concept where two cases are mirrors, but you kind of execute one from the back, which means you sort of look at the back pieces for predicting your AUF. Now that we've covered what pieces to track, let's go over when to track these pieces during the PLL. To help structure this, I divided PLL execution into 4 steps. The first step is to recognize the PLL and the U move needed to get to the correct angle. Based on the PLL, you should know which piece you will track, but you do not need to predict the AUF yet, since the preserved piece may be hard to see from the current angle. For this example, this PLL has two 1x2 blocks and adjacent solved edges. This case is front face edge, and I need to do a U move to get into the correct angle. The second step is to do the U move and identify the piece you will use to predict the AUF. You'll usually have a much better view here than in the first step, so this is when you want to spot the color on the preserved piece. Here, since I'll do my U pre-AUF, and then I will see this blue color in the front face edge slot. The third step is to execute the PLL. While doing this, you should use the color from the previous step to predict the AUF. In this example, since this edge is blue and this center is pink, I need to do a U2 prime AUF for this case. The last step is to execute the AUF itself. You can also use any extra time to think about a finger trick that will let you do the AUF smoothly. For this U2 prime, I will probably use a double flip U2 prime. If you do not manage to complete every step, that is fine, since there are still pieces you can track later to predict the AUF. Near the end of each PLL, you should look for pieces that are settling into place. Many PLLs end in triggers, so you can often watch some of the right-sided pieces move down slightly before returning to the top layer. For this PLL, if I execute the beginning of the AUF first, here I know that this PLL will end with a R prime U2 R. This R prime will push this blue-orange block down. The U2 will not change it, and then the R will push it back up. This means that since this sticker is blue, the whole PLL, all 3 of these stickers will be blue as well, and I will have to do a U2 prime AUF. This also means you should never pause just to predict the AUF. Usually you will have enough time to determine it before you actually need to execute the AUF. If you want to build up your AUF groupings, you can start by inverting the PLL. The inverted case has no ending AUF, so any solved pieces at the end are pieces that will stay preserved throughout the algorithm. From there, you can look for additional preserved pieces, ideally something that's in the front left of the puzzle. These are the same X perm, and this is the inverted version. Since this is inverted, this means this corner will stay in place, and unfortunately there are no other pieces that will stay in place for this algorithm. So to test this out, you can do your algorithm and expect to not AUF, which happened here. This is the same case from a different angle. I'm going to use the front corner again. For this case, you have the 1x3 line of the same color, but the corners aren't really in the right spot. Since this is pink, I like to see the sticker on the right side since it's a little bit more visible than the one on the front for me. Since this is pink, I will have to do a U2 prime AUF or a U prime AUF for this case. Those are all of the techniques and tips I have for predicting AUFs. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.